And we are live. We are live with Sanjeti Ankh Ra from the Temple of Anu. We're going to wait a little bit for some people to come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Wait for those announcements to go by. There we go. Shrine of Ma'at is now live.
Right.
So we're waiting for a few other people to come on. Thank you for joining on a Saturday. Come on in, people.
Yeah, we have that fly. We have a flyer too, right? For the class.
I don't know. For your class?
Okay. Yeah, we'll handle it. We'll handle it.
Mm-hmm. Come on in, family. Thank you for joining us on a late afternoon, early evening on a Saturday. Thank you for joining us. So I am Abut Sashat, and this is Sanjeti Ankh Ra. He is from our sister temple, the Temple of Anu. For those of you who are members of the Shrine of Ma'at, who follow the Shrine of Ma'at with our ascension, or you might follow Temple of Anu's communion, or you might go back and forth because a lot of people do. That way you get your comedic spiritual bathing and lessons every week. If you've been to some of our Hep Keperu words, or if you've gone to the Feast of Sekhmet, or if you've seen our shrine and temple defend our elder and defend the legacy, you know that we are sister and brother shrines. We are sister shrine and temple. We are sister temple and shrine. We are close in the family. And so having Sanjeti on is like having, a brother on to the show. So I just want to welcome you on to Tuesday Talk.
All right. Dua. Thank you very much. Dua. I'm glad to be here.
Go ahead. You glad to be here?
Yeah. I'm glad to be here. We've had plenty of just building sessions. Yourself and myself. And ever since our first building session, it was like, hey, we got to get this on tape because usually the best building sessions, they're never recorded.
I know, because they're spontaneous.
They're spontaneous. So
right.
we got to do this. So
Well, rest assured, there's going to be some spontaneity on tonight. One of the things that's great about the comedic legacy is that it is a living legacy. And I made a point of this year to bring guests on the show that are going to leave you with tangible, doable, like skills or charges or ideas or whatever, so that you can take what you've learned and practice. You can do. Yes, a lot of reading has to be done because so much of it is lied or omitted or stolen or whatever, all of those things that we already know. But once we learn certain things, it's important to be able to apply it and use it in our everyday lives, which helps us to become more spiritual, more rooted in ourselves, more African, more proud of ourselves. We know ourselves, and then we get that sense of pride that goes inside your bones. Ritual and ceremony is so crucial for this. Okay? Now, I'm going to read his bio, but I have to say this. He teaches the Medu Necher under Dr. Raketi Amen. For those of you who know who Dr. Raketi Amen is, and you know that this is a well-trained man in the Medu Necher, it is incredibly important for all of us, myself included, to take lessons and learn about the Medu Necher and learn the Medu Necher so that you can read it for yourself and you can interpret what our ancestors wrote for all of us to have for yourself. Language is the verbalization of culture, okay? It's the verbalization of culture. And so you have no language without culture. So when you learn the language, you learn the culture. Okay, so it's kind of like backing into the culture a little bit by learning the language. You learn how to read it, you learn how to recognize it, you learn our ancestors were fly and so dope. You learn that they appreciated wordplay, all of these things. Having Anika as our high priestess of the shrine, we definitely get our infusion of the Medu Neter just in whatever it is that we're doing. So I'm a little biased. I love the guys who can teach the Medu Neter, so I'll be having him on here probably a little extra heavy. You're gonna see him again. I'm gonna try to get a few other people on here because it's very important for us as Pan-African Black people to be able to read and learn our own language. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Sanjeti. Sanjeti Ankara has a background in biology from Delaware State University and the College of Health Science in San Antonio, Texas. He is a medical and laboratory technician. He is an Africana researcher and instructor of the Medu Neter for the Institute of Kemetic Philology. He is initiated in Ifa Orisha tradition. His first initiated Kemetic temple is with Kira Jahuti Heru Neb Hu, and also with the Temple of Anu. That was his second initiation, where he is currently the Sesh Nusut, or the royal scribe for the Temple of Anu, based in Newark, New Jersey. So welcome, welcome. Like we said earlier, it's really great to have you here. Learning about the Medu Neter is always so super dope because, like I said, it is an entry point into our history from a very powerful perspective. So, Sanjeti, tell us why you're here. What you gonna give to the people today?
Okay. All right. Thank you for that introduction, sister. So today we're going to talk about concepts of purity, coming out of Kemet, obviously from an African center perspective. And, what we do as we say Kemetic practitioners is we look to Kemet as inspiration on how we can live our lives today. So it's not we're not duplicating it per se. Like, we're not trying to live as ancient Kemetic people. We're doing it on how we can do it now because, we're thousands of years apart from there, but yet the records are still available, as well as coming from the same genetic superculture, if you will, in Africa, as the great ancestor Shekinah Job and many others after him have shown us the cultural unity of Black Africa, if you will. So we can look at modern day or present day African cultures, and we can see the relationship between those cultures, such as the Yoruba culture, the Akan culture. We can go to South Africa, go to the Bantu peoples, etc., which is very integral in understanding Kemet, Bantu languages and culture. To the Mbochi speakers in the Congo, to the Kikongo language, in different traditions like Condomble, Ifa Orisha, or Isheshe, Sheshe Legba, as we call it, the Vodun tradition, African American culture, if you will, how African Americans, how we use English, not English itself, but how we use the language. Mm-hmm. We find this in Bantu speakers. We find this in ancient Kemet. All right, and it is a rich continuum that we constantly finding new connections constantly. So, we take advantage of this relatedness that we inherently have, and we question, we interrogate the information, and we find what can we use and adapt and adopt to how the technology is today, how we're living our lives. How can we take these principles for like behavior modification, behavior improvement, thought pattern improvement, and most of all, how can we protect ourselves psychologically from the whims of the Ma'afa? How do we heal from the psychological trauma of the enslavement period and being exploited? How do we protect ourselves? What can we derive from ancient Kemet and related African cultures? So today, as we're talking about the concepts of purity, we'll see how it's being done in Kemet. We're going to see how it's explained by some of our modern scholars, and what tidbits, what things can we take from this and use now, and it'll help us to sculpture and define what it means to be Kemetic, because there's a difference between someone who just goes on Facebook and gives him or herself a Kemetic name, and those who experience African initiatory experiences, right? They're initiated into a group, a temple, shrine. Even though a shrine we know is a sacred space, but it's also used as word for an organization as well. So there's a difference. In those who are Kemetic, number one, you are African-centered. Number one. Number two, you are a person of direct African descent. And this is what we have to set. Okay, what it means. What are the standards? And that we have to have a safe space to do these things, to practice, because this is part of our healing process, healing and growth process.
Now let me ask you this question. Part of our healing and growth process, as we know, is for us to do stuff. So not just like you said, somebody takes a Kemetic name, but it's not really rooted in a family or an initiatory process to have all of the background, et cetera, that's needed. Can you tell us what is ritual purity, and what makes it, how do we make it a ritual, and what makes it pure?
Okay. So number one, let's look at what purity may mean and what ritual would mean. So ritual, let's start with ritual. It is repetition. Ritual is simply repetition for an abstract purpose, if I could use secular words. So ritual, like brushing your teeth every day, that's ritual, that's repetition. But now when you ascribe a meaning, a cultural meaning to the repetition of action or behavior, then that's when it becomes, really defined as ritual. We don't, even though brushing your teeth is a ritual, but we don't use that in our everyday language and ascribe it as ritual, if you will. But ritual, which might say spiritual or religious ritual or cultural ritual, many people, some of us have an issue with the word religion. I don't, so I'll still use it in the same way that you might say spiritual. But when I say religion, I don't mean the Abrahamic perspective at all. Okay, I'm talking about African traditions. And yes, we have religion in Africa, and it's okay. We just have to make a proper distinction. All right, so we have ritual, and what was the other one?
The other one. Listen, I got you. I do that, and I know how you are. See, when you have people who know all this stuff, and when you get into the Kemetic, really deep into it, somebody might ask you one question, and the answer is wide and deep. It's over here, it's over there. And I asked them like 3 parts, so that's why.
Purity. All right, I got it. Purity. All right.
Right.
So purity.
The first part was define purity.
So purity is associated with cleanliness. Okay, the removal of dirt. So in an ancient sense, the removal of dirt. Now, in a modern sense, it would be the removal of dirt and pathogens. Because see, now we have the benefit of microscopes, and now we can see, bacteria, we can see viruses, etc., which contribute to the idea of what it means to be dirty. So something that's infectious, that would be considered impure, if you will, because purity is associated with being clean or being uninfected or sterilized or disinfected. So nowadays we have to include that, the idea of being that's what soaps are for. So you say 2, 3, 4,000 years ago, no, they didn't have microscopes, but they realized that using soaps, or which you might call purifiers, such as netri, in which the Greeks took that word and it becomes natron. So if you take chemistry class and you go to the periodic table, the word for sodium is, they use the Greek natron, and it's capital N, lowercase a. That's for natron. Natron is a Kemetic word borrowed into Greek. So it's not a Greek word. It just has a Greek suffix. And when you go into any dictionary, a Kemetic dictionary, and they have that term as an entry, it'll usually say cleansing agent. and that's the natron. And we know natron is it is a super compound of different types of sodiums. For example, like sodium bicarbonate, which we call baking soda, is one of the compounds that's in that super compound called natron.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I didn't even know we were going to have a little chemistry lesson.
Hey, you know, biology there.
Oh, okay, but same thing. Yeah, periodic table of elements. Oh. So let me know when you want to start showing the slides. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm ready.
You ready? All right, let's do it. Okay, share screen. Tab. There we go. Can you see it?
Loud and clear.
All right, awesome. Okay.
All right. Okay, Hotep, Akhmat, everyone, Alafia, etc. All right, so concepts of purity, ceremony, and secular.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, sorry. Wait a minute, I'm sorry, hold on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so ceremony and secular. And, you know, again, we kind of went over a general intro, but, you know, we're going to talk about the idea of the purity, and we're going to have a lot of comedic information in there. So pictures, we're going to do some reading. So
there we go. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. That's all
you
right.
Can see it now. Okay.
All right, we're good.
Okay, we're good. Go ahead.
Go. All right. It's all right. So the meta you see, that's Sesh Sanjeti. So the scribe Sanjeti. Slide.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we're going to start off with meta nature. Now, this term, the term for purity or to purify, is Wab. Now I can see that some of the font didn't match, but it's okay. All right. So purify, bathe. That's the first entry. Now, if you notice, you see 3 water signs, one above the other. So water is needed for purification. Now, the sign in front of it, you'll see at the top there's a bowl with outpouring water, and it's right over a leg and foot. And those of you who have taken meta, that should be with myself or any others, knows that the leg and foot that represents the B consonant. Okay, so the entire word is Wab. Then you see the water signs is the determinative, purify, bathe, which is an adjective verb. We see some variations of the word right under that. There's your reference. And then we see the second entry, which is purifier, cleanser. Now we're using it as a noun. So you see that determinative, it has a man behind it, a seated man. So usually Egyptologists will translate this as priest. Now, this is not wrong per se. So we don't need to demonize them about that part. We can get them about other things. So it literally, I like to translate it as cleanser, because that's literally what that person is. The job of the Wab or Wabu. Wabu is a male priest. Wabet is a female purifying priestess. Okay. So a Wabu or Wabi, again, both forms are male. They physically clean the space, meaning, you know, they're washing things down, wiping things down, makes sure there's no dust. In a modern sense today, they're disinfecting, they're sanitizing. And then after you do that, then you can use the incense, you can use things like Florida water, etc., to clean the space ritually. So you have to physically do it, and then you ritually clean the space. Many of us use sage, etc. We'll say clear the energy, if you will. I prefer saying clear or purifying the space. If you go a little further down, on the same slide, just bring that last word up a little bit.
Okay.
All right, right there. So a cleaning house. So a wabet, cleaning house or purification chamber. So you should be able to see the signs, the glyphs there. At the bottom right, you'll see a house, like a square structure with the opening bottom. So that's a determinative for a house or an enclosure, or like a compound, if you will. Place of embalming, a tomb, a kitchen, refractory offering slab. So your kitchen, brothers and sisters, is a purification chamber. Why is that? Because this is where you're preparing food. So the preparation of food is also associated with purification. So we'll get more into that as we go along, because that has to do with offerings. And you know, when you're doing food, you have to what? We have vegetables. You have to do what? You got to wash the vegetables off. So most of us, you know, will eat greens, collard greens. So we got to wash the collard greens off. Why are we doing that? Why are we purifying the collard greens? Or why are we purifying the, say, spinach, raw spinach leaves, if you will? Because you're washing away dirt and pathogens, you know, bacteria that's sitting on there. There's even sprays to clean or sanitize vegetables. That's the wabbing process, if you will, in the physical sense. All right, slide. Okay. So, all right. Notice at the top, I put abut equals wabet because it's the same word. So in the Temple of Anu, we'll use the term wabi for the male priest or purifier, cleanser, and wabet for the sisters who do the same thing. And of course, engage in ritual. In the Shrine of Ma'at, you use the word abut. So abut would be the females, abu would be the men. It's the same word. Mm-hmm. So all of you are purifiers, you're cleansers. Okay, keep going down, because this was a repetition. There's a term at the bottom. Oh, keep going. Right there. Okay, good. So at the bottom, you have wabut, meat offering. Meat offering. So what do you have to do? You have to clean the meat off. Now, keep in mind, we're not talking about pork here, because that's not a staple in Kemet. They're talking about beef, bovine, be it and bird, like quail chicks, etc. Goose, geese. And yes, in ancient Kemet, they did eat meat, and that was a regular part of the diet, especially your offerings. And one of the ways that, if you want to understand what's called a Kemetic diet, then you have to look at the inscriptions. You have to look at the walls. You have to look at the paintings, the drawings, etc. The papyri, look in the temples, the tombs, look at their offering ware. If you go to any museum, you'll see the Hotep offering slabs. They've drawn on there what the food is. So when they give offerings, this is also part of their diet as well. It doesn't now, for those of us who choose to be vegan or vegetarian, that is okay. Okay. However, vegetarianism is not as stable in ancient Kemet. We don't have evidence of that, but we do have evidence of vegetables. Lots of vegetables, yes. Fruits, and we do have some meats there, but they call them purified meats. So check this out. So I'm gonna ask you this, Abu. When a Muslim cleans food or cleans meat and they serve it, what is that called? What is that meat called?
Oh, halal.
Halal meat, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So when someone of the Hebrew faith does the exact same procedure, what is that called? What kind of meat is that called?
Kosher.
Kosher meat. Now, let's say we have three examples. The first two, we already know. So we have those from the Islamic faith, those from the Hebraic faith, and they do this procedure. For example, if you have a bovine, their laws say for you to, cut from ear to ear, drain the blood, etc. And you have to kill the animal in a specific way, okay? Specific way. And then you cut, and then you place on a burnt offering. In other words, an ancient stove, if you will. Back then, it was like more like an open fire, and they even have ovens, if you will, ancient ovens. So when they do it, yeah, it's acceptable. Now, if someone from an African tradition does it, what is it called?
An offering? I don't know.
Right. So they may demonize it. They'll say, "Oh, that's animal sacrifice, etc."
Oh,
And
okay.
and we're taught to fear it. Whereas that, wait a minute, you do the exact same thing, the same procedure. African people taught it to them. They inherited it. Those are the Hebrew faith. They got it from African people. But
Period.
then they demonize us for it because those types of rituals are empowering. So any kind of ritual and ceremony that's empowering, your antagonists will tell you to stop doing it. They'll copy it, rename it, put other labels on it, and then have you do the same labels so that it empowers them.
And and they elevate the process that they use, which is stolen, to make it seem like it comes straight from God, right in their hand, like this. Here it is. And you're like, oh, thanks, God. This is great. And that's what they do. Take it from us, remix it, put a different label on it, and then say that it's theirs and say ours is bad. Say ours is demonic. You're going to hell if you do it. It's all of those things. Yes.
So here's the formula. So whenever you read the biblical narrative, whenever it's God or an angel came down and taught something to one of their prophets, that's usually they took it from someone else's tradition and don't want to give the credit. That's typically how it goes. So now, from the Kemetic sense, when we clean food ritually, be it meat, vegetables, etc., then we can call that wabu meat. You follow me?
I love this. So guys,
call it wabu meat. So now we have our own term. We don't need the term kosher. We don't need the term halal. We have wa because that is the word. That's the word that's used for meat offering. It's also a word for food offerings. That's going through that's been cut and prepared, cleaned, sanitized, and cooked, and then it's served. It's wabu meat. You can say wabut meat. Wabut or wabu, either way is fine. So write that down. Wabu meat. New term. Next slide.
So before we move on, can I say this? So again, this is something that's nice and tangible. Do we have wabut markets and butcher shops? No. Maybe this is something we can do in the future, because I know for a long period of time, I had an issue with meat, which is a whole nother story, a whole nother Oprah, for those of y'all old enough to know what I'm talking about. And so I'm like, okay, well, I have two options. I have kosher meat and I have halal meat. But really, I have a third meat, which is the first. So this is another tangible, practical way for us to get back to ourselves. Okay, this is exciting.
Here's something else here. So, so in the Yoruba tradition of Ifa Risha or Isheshe Lekpa, when we give sacrifice offering, it's called Ebo. And Ebo is cognate with the word Hotep. So just as a quick run through, Hotep we know is HTP because only the consonants are written. So when you go into a dictionary, Hotep is a word for offering or sacrifice. Now drop the H, TP. One of the words for offering sacrifice is tepe. So those consonants, TP, is a consonant sequence for the same word for Hotep. Break it down more. The P linguistically is interchangeable with a B because both consonants is what's called a labial, meaning you need your lips, labial lips, in order to correctly enunciate the sound. P, B, and F as well. So those are labels, so it's easily interchangeable. So the P in Hotep, that's actually the root. So it's a poo, and that P is interchangeable with the B and Ebo in Yoruba. So it's the same.
How would I spell it? I put EBO, but that would read Ebo, but that's not really Ebo. How would I spell it to see it?
Ebo, it'd be EBO. Here, I'll get you to have to take it. Yeah. So Ebo, I put it in the chapter as Ebo, and it has accent marks on it. So we wouldn't say
that's okay. Ebo. You know, if it has accent marks, that's okay. I just wanted to be able to give it to them. So, you know, we one of the things that is good to know is that our languages, our African languages, aren't so separated and different as they might seem to us. They're just like Sanjeti just broke it down. They're still very similar and still very connected because it was the same people just going from, you know, one part of the continent to another and having life happen, of course, which made things change. But he's breaking down how these things are similar, okay, because they come from the same root.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So here we're having the other more forms of the word wab, but now it's abu. Abu. Again, it's the same word. In fact, in our next building session, we can go further into why these words are the same, essentially. You know, okay. Of course, with some other information. But again, this is a rough overview here. So purification, purity, same word. There's word for meal, word for offerings. So, you know, we can all decide whether we can say abu meat, if you will, abu food. If you go down a little further, abu ray, word for breakfast. So this is
abu ray, you said? Or
correct. Abu ray, because most words in the Kemetic language end in a vowel. It's just not written.
Abu ray.
Mm-hmm.
Or obu ray? Obu ray?
Well, it's not wrong, if you will. It's because of the font. I'm probably going to need to send you the font program so that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so that it can migrate over.
All right, cool. We can do that. Okay. Abu Ray, I like that. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so here's some comparisons here. Slight overlap, but we're still in good territory here. So both words or forms, Kemetic wob or wab, and then obu. So the consonants are in red. And you go to Yoruba, bo, which means to wash or to cleanse. Well, to cure, meat, context of what? Purification. The Kalenjin language, the Kalenjin people, who most of them live in Kenya, and of course they're spread along the Hapi River region. So wabe, pure, and this is a root word in these other terms. Luwabing, pure, unblemished and gentle animal, spotless. Slide up just a little bit.
Is that good?
Yep. So noob wabing, without blemish, spotless, pure. So this term, wab, essentially is still used in other African languages to this day. And this is how we build our understanding and comprehension of how these terms are used. Okay. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
So let's think about, let's go into the idea of washing. So this comes from the pyramid text of Pepi the First, going back to the old, we were calling the Old Kingdom or the Old Period. 6th Dynasty, ancient Kemet. Says this: the doors of the sky are open. The doors of the firmament are thrown open for Haru of the Netzaru, that he may ascend and bathe in the field of reeds. This image that you see on the side, this comes from the pyramid text of Pepi the First. How do we know that? Because we could read the text. So when you, let's say if you go to the, you don't have to move, just your eyes. When you look on the right-hand side of the screen, you see the columns. So the 1, 2, 3, the third column from the right, you'll see what Egyptologists call a cartouche. The proper term is Shenu or Shinwa, and you see the name right there.
So for those of you who don't know, that's the 4th like character down. It's the one with the oval circle.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's the name. So that's Pepi. So it's 2
sure is
signs that represent the P sound, which is a reed mat or a footstool. And then beneath that, you see the 2 reed leaves. So that's how we get Pepi. So we know that we're not just making things up, or we're not just pulling random pictures to look good. We do the research, we put the effort in. All right. So again, the idea here is when this king, this Nasut Bidi, has been laid to rest, there's ritual of proper interment so that the person's spirit can rise into the sky. So this idea of going to heaven, this is an African concept, but it's about rising into the sky and emerging with the stars. And that's all throughout the text, and rising up and being pure. So when a person passes, the body, the vessel has to be cleansed, because it has to be prepared for the afterlife. Because you don't want to go in an unpure or dirty or decrepit state. And you go there so you can continue. So watch this: that he may ascend and bathe. So what you do here on earth, you continue to do it. So even in afterlife, you're still ascending. In the afterlife, you're still bathing. You're still cleansing. It is an ongoing, eternal process. Of course, we take these things literally. We understand the religious symbology of it. But the most important thing is connecting the psychology, the pattern of thinking between these people, our modern African people, and us here in the diaspora. It's about connecting the psychology. This is what Diop calls the psychological factor. The psychological factor. Sheikh tells us you have the psychological factor, you have the cultural factor, and historical factor that we touch on here. But yes, go ahead, sis.
Psychological factor, the historical, and what was the other one you said? In historical.
You have the linguistic factor,
mm-hmm.
historical factor, and the psychological factor. You can find that if you go to here, civilization of barbarism. Make sure you get this work. Civilization of barbarism. In his work, he gives us the format. He gives us the models. All right. Go to the next slide once you're ready.
All righty. This is beautiful. Where do you want me to stop?
Right. This is right here. So this here is an image of the gable. Now, when you look at a house, when you look at a house, like a typical house here in the United States, and you look at the roof, you know how the roof, it forms like a triangle like this on the top, and then on the sides, it's still like a triangle. So the gable is that triangular shape part of the roof on the side. That's what a gable is. So this image that you see here is the western gable from the pyramid of the Nasut Bidi Unasa. So they usually say Unas, but linguistically, it's more than likely Unasa. So that's what this is. And how do we know that? If you expand it a little bit.
Okay. So get bigger.
Two.
Should I bring it down some so you can see?
That's good right there. That's fine.
Good?
So
Okay.
so you see all of the oval shapes here. It's in here many times. So let's say you start from the left-hand side. So the left column. So if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth one. So the fifth column, starting from the left, and I'm picking that one because the image is clearer there. That is Unasa's name there. The top is a hare, or people may say like a rabbit, but a hare. So which is the the WN sound. Then beneath that's the water sound, which is the N consonant. And then beneath that, reading it from left to right, is the folded cloth. That's your S consonant. And then after that is the reed leaf. I'm sorry. Other way around. I'm sorry. Reed leaf and then the folded cloth. My apologies there. Okay. Yep. So that's how we know that this is his. All right. Keep going.
I'll go smaller again so you can have a better scope of. To the next page or?
2.
Okay.
So as she's going up, we're going to read a passage from the text of Unasa, Pyramid Text Utterance 253, specifically Unasa 164, in the antechamber. I'm just going to read the translation on the right-hand side. Someone has become cleaned or bathed in the marsh of reeds. 2, Ra has washed or purified in the marsh of reeds. 3, someone has washed or was washed in the marsh of reeds. Slide up just a little bit.
More.
That's good. Unasa has washed or purified in the marsh of reeds. So what do we see here? We see a commonality that the king, the Nasut, is mimicking or taking as a model the behavior of the deity. The deity washes in the field of reeds, purifies, cleanses, and that serves as the model. And then the king takes after that as a continuous model, because the people use the king, and remember, the king could be a man or a woman, as the model for behavior and thinking. And this would take place in the morning, because the most significant rituals take place first thing in the morning. And this is consistent throughout Kemetic history. Now, of course, they have 3 primary times: morning, afternoon, and evening. So you could take that as a model. Of course, we all shower and bathe in the morning when you wake up, and there's many benefits to that. It wakes you up, it re-enlivens you, etc. And you bathe in the afternoon, and then definitely before you go to bed. Use this as a model and turn it into a ritual, meaning repetition with a cultural meaning. Keep going.
Repetition with a cultural meaning. That makes it a ritual. Repetition with a cultural meaning.
All right, you can stop right there. Okay. All right, now this classical work here, Libation, by Dr. Nahusi, everyone should have this work. Everyone should have this work. Libation by Dr. Nahusi, professor of African Studies at Temple University.
So any HUSI, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Libation by Dr. Nahusi.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Looks like something come over. All right. So ritual purity, this is what he tells us. Ritual purity is not normally possible without physical and moral cleanliness and purity. For external or physical purity was considered a representation of internal or spiritual purity. The helpers of the officiating priests were physically clean and ritually pure also, for it is certain that they were made ritually pure during the ritual of washing in the special pool. The idea of purity was not restricted to the priests and priestesses. It was taken very serious by the majority of the people of Kemet. Besides regular baths, there was ritual washing of the hands before every feast, before every meal. This is called the Rite of Soch. That is water pouring. The ritual washing of the hands and feet was considered a way of purifying the person both externally, physically, and internally, spiritually. Page 58. So what does this tell us? This shows that there's a correspondence even with today. It's always recommended that you wash your hands before you eat. You should purify. In African American culture, what happens? Let's say, mother's in the kitchen, she's cooking. One of the kids come in and they want to start, dipping their hands. Ooh, I'm gonna get the sauce, and you smacks your hand. Wash your hands first. See? Because you should be pure and clean before you touch food. And we're going to, let's say, the healthcare or even the culinary environments. They tell you to wash your hands before and after you eat. Wash your hands before and after you go into the bathroom. Wash your hand, when you come into your home, you should, of course, the first thing you should do, remove your shoes, etc. Keep it at the door. We'll come back to that towards the end. And then first, wash your hands. All right, let's keep going. So now we're coming to the Cairo stone block of the high priest of Amun, or Hem-Nefertepi Baknakatsu of the 19th dynasty, this high priest. He tells us, I was taught to be a wild priest in the domain of Amun as a son under the guidance of his father. He favored me. He perceived me because of my character. I followed him in a truthful way. I did what is beneficial in his temple, consisting of effective works. I did not commit evil in his domain. I did not neglect my duties at his side. I stepped in humility upon his ground. So when you step into a temple space, when you step into a space in which Africans are engaging in ceremony and ritual, you have to be humble when you step into the ground or step into that space. I did not become angry with his staff. I was a father to them. So in other words, he was a man who was able to control his emotions, his temperament. So when mistakes were made, he didn't blow up. He didn't act out of unjust and undue emotions and uncontrollable. He was more of a jegna to them. We don't want to use the word mentor. We can consult Iwalawo Baruti, for that one. Why we should not use the word mentor. I gave every man's possession to him, for greed is my abomination. In other words, he made sure that people got their just due, what was owed to them. I made a burial for the one lacking in heir. So he made sure people got their proper proper burials. They were taken care of. They got the proper purification rites. The word rite is related to the word ritual, same root. A coffin for the one who had none. That's very significant. Imagine today somebody, not having, say, insurance coverage to take care of their funeral and burial. Who's going to take care of that if that person did not put those things in their proper place? Maybe that person didn't have, the funds, the money, or the wealth to do so. He'd make sure it happened. Very important. Let's keep going. And these inscriptions is right on his front leg right there. He says, continuing, I defended the orphan who appealed to me. So this is someone who may not have or know his or her own parents, etc. He made sure that those youngsters were not taken advantage of. He says, I cared for the widow. So this is a woman whose husband may have been lost in battle, may have died of disease or some other misfortune, etc. And he made sure she was taken care of. In fact, this is really common with African tradition. If a woman becomes a widow, then in some cultures, the husband, if he had a brother, he would take her in, because it's common that no woman should ever be homeless. No woman in these African traditions should ever be homeless. We could take that as a model. I did not drive the son from the place of his father. In other words, he didn't push a son who's owed wealth that's passed down from his parents to him. He didn't come in and take it. He made sure that he still has it. And I don't take a nursling from his mother. In other words, he does not take or kidnap or traffic children. That's what that's saying in a practical sense. I don't take a nursling from his mother. My arms were open. I gave to the one who had nothing. My food offerings given to the one who was in need. What is this called? Community service is what we call it. So somebody took a shot at me earlier for being an alpha. That's okay. That's all right. But see, these BGLOs, as they're called, Black Greek letter fraternities and organizations, one of the staple activities is community service. Now, you don't need to be a part of this organization to do community service. Okay, you can be part of a different organization. You could do it on your own, etc. You can create your own group. But yet, community service given to those who have not, giving clothes, giving food, is something. Is behavior, is activity that, like this is valued in this culture. It's valued to give. In most African cultures, that is a high value. These are things that you can take to say, this is why I deserve a proper burial, proper afterlife, why I'm worthy to be revered. I open my ears to the one who spoke my eye, meaning he listens to reason. He can take critique, proper critique. Let's keep going. Now, we are going to go into what ritual cleaning means among the Lubara people in Uganda. Because remember, we have to go to modern or present day African culture. It's going to help us understand not just Kemet, but just African tradition, as a whole majority. So in 1971, Lubara religion, ritual and authority among an East African people. Lubara Lubar say that the purpose of ghost invocation. Now, what does he mean by this? We understand this as ancestral invocation. That's how we understand it. Okay. Is, quote, cleansing the territory. That is, purify the lineage home and to mend the breach in lineage relations that has been caused by the original offense. This is very important, because they're saying that when you invoke the ancestors, when you engage in ancestral ceremony, ritual, where we're invoking them, propitiating them, praising them, etc., you cleanse the space, you cleanse the territory. You physically do that. But it's also, when you cleanse the territory, you're dealing with the group dynamic. And the author will explain that as we go further on. And it's used to mend relationships. This is the process of wabbing. There's also, conjointly, the purpose of cleansing the body. Wa edezu. Which refers to the individual patient and the members of his immediate family. All right, keep going. The author continues. The concepts of cleansing and repairing are both included in the Lubar verb ede. It means prepare or make ready. A person or territory, especially in the sense of the lineage home, and so of the collectivity of the lineage members, is cleansed of sin, and the network of social relations that compose a man's status or a group's position in its social system is repaired. So cleansing ritual is used to mend group dynamic, group relationships. And what is this talking about essentially? This is ma'at right here. If there's an offense or some type of social imbalance, then how do we correct that imbalance? We begin with ritual, a ritual cleaning, or which is the same as repairing of the relationship to purify the relationship. This is the Lubar people in Uganda right now, and they practice ma'at. Keep going, slide. The sinner is in a state of sin, which is removed by purification at the rite of sacrifice. That should be R-I-T-E instead. Rites of purification are found both as a part of sacrificial rites and in rites in which there is no oblation. Let's stop there. Oblation is another word for ritual washing of water. So before you engage in your rituals, even at the Shrine of Ma'at, you are expected to be clean. You're expected to have showered, washed your hands, etc. We do the same at the Temple of Anu. Before we engage in du'a'u, not only are you, when you show up, you should have showered already and clean. When we get there, we have a ritual cleaning where we literally use water in a ritualistic manner, a prescribed sequence before we enter the actual temple space and engage in sacred ceremony. So again, oblation is ritual washing. Both are referred to as cleansing the body when an individual is concerned, but it's referred to as cleansing the territory when a lineage group is concerned. So I find this interesting because now we're looking at the symbology of how language is being used, like Medu Neter. So cleansing the body for the Lubar people is when you're doing it individually. When you're cleansing the territory, that's when you are doing it for an entire group. So the people, that's like the territory. That's what makes the territory, if you will, in your lineage, because your ancestral lineage, because again, if you do an offense, this is reflective of your ancestral lineage. It's not just you; it affects those before you. Or in Khmer, we might say "Imu Hat." Imu Hat means those who come before. Imu Hat, and those who are descended from you. It affects everyone. So you have to correct the behavior and do ritual to stamp it. Now, when we go to the work by Marimba Ani, Let Circle Be Unbroken, she explains how ritual, it makes you an agent of the reality, meaning you are deliberately taking part in the operations of the world, the operations of the universe, purposely, not by accident. Life not just happening to you, you are making things happen. That's what ritual does. Next slide. Hopefully the background, is the background kind of loud?
It's a little bit. It's not, it's nothing.
Okay. All right. This baby girl. All right. So here we're looking at a image from the Papyrus of Ani. This is sheet or plate 30B. 30B. This is for the chapter 125. So chapter 125 is where we get the famous 42, people call it 42 laws of Ma'at. I like to call it the Declarations of Innocence. It's more, which speaks more to the function of it. So this is just a snippet. Keep going.
Sanjay, here?
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So let's pay attention to this one. Hail to you, O you who are in the hall of justice. This is Ma'ati, the hall of Ma'ati, who have no lies in your bodies, who live in truth. Behold, I have come to you without falsehood of mine, without crime of mine, without evil of mine. I've given, watch this, I've given bread to the hungry, water to the thirsty, clothes to the naked, and a boat to him who was boatless. This is like saying, I donated one of my cars to somebody. Make sure they had a whip, okay? Or
were they naked or they naked? They were naked?
Probably not. Just someone who doesn't really have a lot of clothes. Hopefully nobody's sitting around naked right now.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I am pure of mouth and pure of hands. I wash my hands. This is literally, I am pure. My brow is clean, meaning you're cleaning, your head and everything. My hinder parts are clean, so your private parts are clean. And my middle is in the pool of truth, meaning my insides are clean. There is no member in me, no body part that is devoid of the truth. I have bathed in the southern pool. So,
oh God, sorry.
For those of us, it's okay. So those of us who are Kemetic, what does it mean to be Kemetic? It means that, in a truthful sense, you are doing these things. Are you giving clothes to those who are in need? Are you giving food to those who are in need? Are you giving to those who are in need? That's what it means to be Kemetic. That's part of what it means to be Kemetic, because we go all the way from the old, what they call the old kingdom, those tombs, etc. We have men and women talking about their deeds throughout their lives. It's common that they will say, I have given clothes to those who are in need. We've seen in two different instances, one from the famous Pertham Heru, and that particular quote is chapter 125, coming from what they call the Theban recension or the Wasetian version. So that quote, it doesn't specifically come from the Papyrus of Ani. It would have came from the Papyrus of Nebseni, it came from the Papyrus of Nu, the Papyrus of Nakhet, etc. 125 chapter.
All right.
And those of us who are committed, go back up. Those of us who are committed, you definitely want to explore, maybe read the entire chapter at some point, the 125th chapter, not just the 42 that you see in the Papsani, because that's a snippet. We're going to read the entire chapter, just like we'll say those who are from the biblical narrative will say, hey, you need to read the whole chapter. Don't just read one verse, get the context. So we have to hold ourselves to the same, if not higher standard. We have to read the entire chapter. Now, the extra steps when dealing with Kemet is that when you read the text, you have to do it in context with the images. Remember this: never attempt to interpret the images without the text. Let me say that again. Never attempt to have a full interpretation of the images, the pictures you see on walls, tombs, papyri, etc., without reading the text. And it could just be a simple translation, because they go hand in hand. Because if you don't, then we get people who will interpret, let's say, an image of Nun holding up the boat of Ra with different root, and you see the image of water behind the deity Nun, and they'll say, "Oh, that's Noah's Ark." Okay, you get people who will interpret it that way, but people who have those interpretations, not one of them can read the text. I promise you. Not one of them can read.
Can you tell me again? Never interpret. Say that again.
Okay, so never attempt to have a conclusion. Let me reword it. Never attempt to have a conclusion or really an interpretation of an image from in Kemet, be it in a tomb, be it on papyri or any other solid medium, without reading the text, because the pictures are always in context of the text, what's written there, because the labels are there. The labels are telling you who this person is, which deity this is, what ritual is happening, what festival is occurring, the date, etc.
There we go. Is this the right page?
Yeah, keep going up.
Go up.
Well, yeah, continue. Yes. Okay. So here, we're not going to read the whole thing. This is a relief of Ptah, and this is what's called a Hotep Dina Sut. And in the future, we can go over that in detail. But just take a look at the image of the man, Ptah, ritually pure. So the Himu, which we might say priests or servants, his body's shaven. Again, it's their custom. We don't necessarily do it to that degree, even though people do shave their heads, shave their hair of their bodies. But we can use this. We can use this as inspiration of proper grooming. So if you need to shave the hair off your head, shave it off. In fact, you go to the Yoruba tradition, with Sheshelekba, and many of the traditions, their heads are shaven for ritual. They look just like that. Men and women, heads shaven. So this is a continuum. And we know the name. It's at the bottom of Ptah. And we go to line 11. His name is at the bottom. That's how we know the name. Keep going. All right, some more images right there on the left. This is a washing of an altar. So these will be the Wabu. And then on the right, this is pure offerings. So we have that Himu priest, that priest there. Could be a Hemneter doing an offering ritual. to a necher. And on that table are food offerings, plants or vegetables. We will have bird and beef on there. Perhaps some fruit and definitely bread. And he's burning incense cones, etc. He's holding a censer in his hand. So he's been burning incense for a long time. If this is the morning ritual, then it more than likely would be myrrh. If it's afternoon, it will be frankincense. If it's in the evening, there's a incense in which it's a mixture. It's called kapet or kaipi. Keep going.
Right here. Right here.
Okay. Yep. So this image here, this comes from the Pertum Heru. This is the Papsa'ani sheet or plate 31, chapter 125. So what we're calling the 42. This is what it looks like. This right here is a portion of the 42. We usually see the image of the scales. That comes from the beginning of the papyrus of Ani. Okay, but that does not contain the 42. We have to get accustomed to looking at the primaries directly. So this with the 42, that's what it looks like right there, because you see the columns there. Next slide. Now, there are instructions on what you should do and what state you should be in when you enter the Hall of Ma'ati. When you enter the Hall of Ma'ati, and those instructions is contained in chapter 42 of the Pertum Heru. And in this particular case, you see it, Papsa'ani. Here are the instructions. The correct procedure in this Hall of Justice or Ma'ati, one shall utter this chapter pure and clean, and clad in white garments and sandals, painted in black eye paint and anointed with myrrh. So this is happening in the morning. Thou should be offered to him meat and poultry, incense, bread, beer, and herbs. When you have put this written procedure on a clean floor of ochre, overlaid with earth, upon which no swine or small cattle have trodden. Let's break this down.
Let's break it down.
Let's break this down. It starts off now when you look at the papyri there, on the right-hand side, right under that pool of fire that's flanked by baboons. That's the translation here. So that's why I translated in red, because that's the text right there. So the correct procedure, meaning this is how you do it in the Hall of Justice, in the sacred space. When you utter this, when you speak these words, you need to be pure and clean. Meaning you need to have showered, your hands need to be clean, your face, everything, your hinder parts, all of that needs to be clean. And you need to put on white garments. So what do we do when we go into sacred ceremony? We do different colors, but the base color is what? White. What's the commanded word for white? Hedja. That's the commanded word for white. White garments and sandals, painted in black eye paint. Many of us may or may not do this today, but the point still remains. And anointed with myrrh. So when we're practicing in the morning, we're showing up to our ceremonies and rituals, our gatherings, be it called communion, be it called ascension, etc. Put your myrrh oil on. Because what are you doing? You're using ancient chemical procedures that's prescribed as a model. We still have myrrh today, right now. So exactly, Sherry Lee. In Yoruba tradition, you shave a head in initiation. Exactly right. Okay. And nurture with more. Put that myrrh oil on. And she will offer to him meat and poultry. So yes, you can offer meat. No pork though. Okay. You can offer poultry, bird, or beef. Bird, beef. You can offer bread. You can offer beer. Okay. Be it Cristal. Well, Cristal's not beer, but you can do wines as well.
Okay,
whatever
Diddy
wine,
from the 90s.
I
I'm
know,
sorry.
right? Not like age, right? Okay. Red wine, white wine, however way you do it. Beer, Heineken. Technically, you do Heineken. You know, this is real. This is how we do. Even in Sheshe Ba, when we have that, we call it OT, that gin. Okay, we have that in our rituals. And herbs. So you can offer herbs when you put this procedure in writing on a clean floor. So the floor that needs to be swept and mopped and everything, disinfected. And here's that important part: on the earth upon which no what? Swine or small cattle have trodden. So we know that it's a taboo up in here.
So Islam and Judaism got the no swine from us as well. We see it right here.
Mm-hmm. Now let's continue with that. Check this out. So in Herodotus, in his second book, chapter 47 or section 47, mind you, now Herodotus, he's living in he's the sixth or fifth century BC, and he's in Kemet. He's observing, and he's there during the Persian invasion. That's how he got up in there anyway. So he's observing and writing down, you know, what he's seeing around him in the countryside. He's observing priests, etc. And he says this: swine are held by the Egyptians to be unclean beasts. Firstly, if an Egyptian touched a hog in passing by, he goes, it should be goes, he goes to the river and dips himself in, clothes and all. And secondly, in fact, we can stop there. It's an abomination for a pig to even come in physical contact with you. To the point where, like, they'll go to the river and I need to wash my body and my clothes all at the same time. Secondly, swine herds, native-born Egyptians, though they be, are alone of all men forbidden to enter any Egyptian temple. Let's stop there. So in the northern regions of Kemet, which might say like the marshlands, etc., which again happens to be closer to Western Asia, you did have swine herds, people who were, you know, kept in raised pigs, excuse me. But, you know, they're like isolated. So majority of people don't even want nothing to do with them. And a swine herder is not even allowed in the temple because watch the symbology of this. So in the previous slide, you don't have to go there, but in the previous slide, it says, when you enter into the hall of justice, the hall of Ma'ati, it needs to be on a clean floor in which no swine have trodden. That includes a swine herder because they are considered unclean. So an unclean person by physically unclean, or someone who's unclean in character, like they're just a messed up person, should never be in a temple, ever. Because that person has a character of a swine. Nor will they be given, watch this, nor will they give a swine herd in marriage, nor take a wife from their women, but swine herds intermarry among themselves.
Dag. I gotta jump in and say this. We as Black people are finding our way back home, and I love the fact that we are witness to this. The shrine is contributing to that. The temple is contributing to that. The synergy of everybody else who's actually doing some work. But before we had this level of awakening, because there was always a level of awakening, especially like 90s hip hop at its core, nobody was eating swine. Let me rephrase that. You heard a brother tell you, no swine, no pork on my fork. Like eating swine, eating pigs and pork and all of that was like the lowest level of, it was something we all agreed on. that, or enough of us agreed on that we shouldn't do. It was something most certainly that people heard in the Black community. Just last week, we talked about this with Bonaset and soul food or slave food. It's slave food that we were given pork to eat. That's how you can know that eating a pig is bad for you from one of two ways. If you have access to the texts where they tell you straight up, or you can take a step back and realize that the culture that came out of enslavement, we were given the pig from the enslaver, and anything they gave us wasn't good. Nothing they gave us was good. So we're seeing this on two ends of staying away from pork. Even being around swine made you ineligible to be around those people who live their lives in a pure way. So just keep that in mind, that here we all know a brother, and I'm not trying to be funny. We all know a brother who came out of jail, who had either become a Muslim, Nation of Islam, or whatever, but he got some knowledge, and part of that was staying away from the swine. So it's full circle if we are able to really kind of connect the dots on where we hear our information and when we've gotten it. I didn't want to break your stride, brother, but I just had to jump in on that because we were just talking about that last week.
It's all good. Now, just from to be objective, the practice for African Americans on a wider scale of refraining from the eating of pork, that was widespread due to the teachings of the Nation of Islam.
Right.
Okay. And we know that tradition is they're adapting it from the Abrahamic traditions, which pork is an abomination to eat in that the matrix tradition, if you will, Abrahamic traditions, in which they pick it up. More than likely, they picked it up from Kemet.
From us, right?
So although starting from 1930, so 1930 is the date that's given for the founding of the Nation of Islam by originally Elijah Poole, then Elijah Muhammad. He became moving forward. So our reasonings didn't come out of Kemet originally, but now upon further research, we realize, okay, this is a taboo, for their own reasons, but now this is an added reason.
Right. But, the original reason.
Right. So the original within the last 100 years, due to Nation of Islam. Now, as Kemetic, those of us who are into Kemetic tradition and culture, we see this as, all right, so this is the reason we add on to that. We have something that's legitimate here.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this tangent question. Jonathan Rogers asked, is this why Jesus sent the demons into the herd of hogs and made them run off the cliff? I have no idea what that is. Do you know what this is? Can you answer this question?
Yeah, so that is one of the legendary accounts of Yeshua, Isa, Jesus. Mm-hmm. That again, it shows the continuation of pigs as being taboo.
Right.
In fact, when you go to, I think it's the tomb of Seti first, Min Ma'at Ra Seti, second Nasut of the 19th dynasty. In that tomb, you see a baboon with a stick beating away a pig. So, and I hope I got that tomb correct. So if someone in there knows that and they can correct it, I'm open to that. But you do find that in Kemet. And one of the animals that's associated with Satesh in his more destructive state is a pig. Okay, in that aspect of Satesh.
In that, right, that iteration. Okay. All right, we can go back to the slides.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so no taking. So they will not take a woman from the swine herders, and nor will they give their women over to the men of a swine herder.
Mm.
So they stay among themselves. So they're an isolated group. Now, in the same text, Herodotus, he does go on to describe a feast in which a pig is sacrificed. But he does mention that for the most part, you do not offer a pig. The only place that is offered is actually in this place in the north, and I believe the Greeks call it Mendes, and do it once a year, and they offer it to Dionysus, etc. And again, that's according to Herodotus, but that's the only time. But that's those isolated people. This is not the whole country. This is not common at all.
Right.
And they live in the north. So let's keep that in mind. Okay.
Right.
All right, continue. This is the last slide. Okay, so I just took this quote from a website because I think it's articulated well. All right. So Egyptian priests wore papyrus or palm leaf sandals made so that they could be slipped on from the front or rear. Egyptian priests removed their shoes out of respect for their gods. It was also the custom to remove sandals in the presence of superior rank. Shoes were worn outside of the house, but never in the home. So let's go. Egyptian priests removed their shoes out of respect to their god. So, we see this in other traditions, even modern African traditions. You typically, want to remove your shoes when you engage in ritual. And you want to remove your shoes before you enter your house. So see here, this is what they call the Narmer palette. This is the front side. And you see Narmer with the mace getting ready to slay his enemy. But right behind him, he has a servant who's carrying his sandals for him, because this is sacred ground. So you do a sacred ground. Now, practically, can you imagine how many germs are at the in the front area of your door? I was looking it up the other day, and it's some sources say over 200,000, others say 300 to 400,000 units of bacteria that's even found on the bottom of your shoes. Now, what would be what are the most infectious or dirtiest or unpure areas in your house? Front door area, doorknobs, and the bathroom and kitchen. Because again, that's where meats are and all the kind of stuff, food. And, so you have to constantly clean, disinfect, and sanitize. So for me, especially since the pandemic started, coming, home from working in the hospital, I'll spray the front area of the doorway with a strong disinfectant. And I would do the same thing on the inside of the door. So we're walking in, and I'll bring my shoes from work in the house. I leave them right outside the door. They don't even come inside. So you want to disinfect it. Get your Lysol wipes, wipe that stuff down, especially in this pandemic. Because sometimes, we have those of us who may, get infected, and we're like, well, how did I get it, etc. Well, keep in mind, when people are sneezing, where does it go? Down. Well, it can go up, but it goes down on countertops and where? The ground, the floor. Where are you walking? On the floor. So that stuff is on the bottom of your shoes, your Timberland boots. You come inside, what are you doing? You're bringing that inside. And you got children who are running around, right? They put their hands on the ground. See that? That's how that happens. Disinfect the front area of your doorway, front on the inside, front on the outside. And also, Wipe your shoes, wipe, your boots, etc. Get some nice gloves, get some gloves, not natural gloves. Some people are allergic to latex. Put those gloves on, get those wipes, grab your boots or your shoes and scrub, wipe the outside first on the top and then scrub the bottom. Toss, get another one, do the other shoe. And that'll help keep those nasty coronavirus particles and E. coli. A lot of E. coli gets into the house, bottom of the shoe. There's fecal matter all out there that you can't see. That's the truth. So you want to wob. This is the wobbing process here, purification process. Because what? If pigs are dirty, if we're considering them dirty and other animals is dirty, because it said cattle as well, and they're not to enter into the temple. If your house is your temple, you don't want to bring the dirt and the mess, the pathogens, bacteria that's on the bottom of the shoes into your house.
Speaking of keeping a certain space clean, we have a question. Can you explain when invoking ancestors into your space? I know you touched on that a little bit at the beginning, but if you could just kind of go over that, unless you wanted to continue with the slide. Are we done with the slides here?
Yeah, the next, I think the next one is.
The next one's the last one? Okay.
Yeah, go up.
Oh, it is complete.
Yes, that's it right there. That's good. Yep. So you can close that out. Yep, okay. We can close out.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay, great, awesome. Thank you for that. That was so great. If you can answer the question about invoking the ancestors into the space, I think that would be pretty good. Can you go back to that point one more time?
Okay.
I'll post the question. Daya Kador. Mm-hmm.
Mean like how to do it, or what it's like to do it, or
I would say for the staying in line with what we're doing, how would you create your space? How would you purify your space when you are bringing the ancestors into the space?
Okay, so typically, one, clean the space. Number one, make sure it's not dirty and disorderly, and you want to set aside a space specifically for ancestors. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you want to begin by burning incense. Again, if you're following the like a Kemetic procedure, depending on the time of day, like if it was early in the morning, they would start by striking a fire. But, today we use lighters. You start with candles, burn your incense. And if it's the morning, you do myrrh. You want to make sure that you have a list of their names. And when you call their names, and assuming that they were righteous, each one of them were righteous people, you put in front of that person's name Imaki, which means a venerated or honored one. That's one of the ones you put in front of the name. And then after the name, you'll put Ma'akaru, which means truly spoken, a true voice. So you have the title. And then you have a title. So the person who has gone through a ritual resurrection or the proper interment, that person's title is Asar. So it would be like Imaki Asar, the name of your ancestor. Then right after that, you put Ma'akaru. And that's how you invoke.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that answered. I think that answered his question, his or her. I'm sorry, I don't know about how to invoke ancestors. Anything deeper, you'd have to get initiated somewhere, because for a wider, deeper understanding, you would have to get initiated. But Sanjeti definitely gave a good explanation and example or explanation of how how to bring the ancestors into the space. Migrated. I'm putting a comment.
Oh, let me look at the comments too, because I haven't looked at it this entire time.
I'm answering a question, foreigners. The question was, are there people today, I'm paraphrasing, are there people today who are related to the Kemites? And let's just remember that these were African people. And migration happened, all throughout the continent. So is there someone that is a descendant or a group of people that are descendants of Kemites is similar to saying, are there people who are similar? Are there people who are similar to the enslaved Africans who used to live in Georgia that are still here? So think of them as just, not just, but they were actual people who lived in what is now called Egypt. My parents, both of my parents are Black American. All four of my grandparents are Black American. My family comes from Georgia on my grandmother and grandfather's side, on my father's side, and North Carolina and Virginia, both sides, grandfather, grandmother on my mother's side. So there's migration that happens, the Great Migration, especially with my grandparents coming from Georgia all the way up to Connecticut. And so migrations happen when people have to flee a region. And so when foreigners came in and basically took what was left of Kemet, you had Kemites who moved to the west, and I'm giving a very broad history. And then also you have places that are closer, like kind of in the middle, where again people naturally migrate, and they bring with them their traditions and customs and their genetic gene pool. So you're gonna see that east to west. Go ahead.
So to answer that or to add to it, yes, there are people who migrated out of Kemet into other regions. Most people stayed, but you have those who migrated. There's even traditions who have that as part of their oral tradition. So the Kalenjin people who mostly live in Kenya, their own oral tradition, they say they migrated there from Kemet. Mm-hmm. The Kalenjin, that's their oral tradition. In fact, it's to the point where they name the city that they come from. The city that they say they come from is called Jo, which is short for Jedu, which is in northern Kemet. This can essentially be confirmed because the Kalenjin language is very closely related to Kemetic, specifically Coptic, and this is demonstrated. So if you get the works of Kipchwich Sambu, to my knowledge, he has two books. One of them is called Isis. Let me get it.
Can you hold it up and I'll put it in the chat.
1 second, hold on.
Okay. MF Takara Soul. I also heard that each wave of invasions from the east. Sanjeti, can you answer this question as well? I also heard that each wave of invasions from the east sent Africans to the west, and the last ones that got there were the first ones turned over for slavery and ended up in the Americas. That's what I've heard as well. Can you add a little foresight to that?
All right, I'm sorry, I was okay.
Here,
invasions from the east. Okay, from the east.
So East Africa, like Kemet, Egypt, East Africa, not India, east of Africa.
And the last ones that got there were the first ones turned over to slavery and ended up in America.
The Americas, not just here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I see. I don't know if there's specific evidence specifically for that. Now, we do have what was called the Trans-Saharan, I like to call it human trafficking enterprise.
That's what it is. Call it what it is. You got
human trafficking enterprise trekked across that desert. Yes, That's a fact. There's plenty of evidence. And the main ones who were doing that were Muslims who were in charge of that part of that side of the enterprise. Okay. All right. That's a fact. It's not our opinion. That's the evidence. And, did they employ non-Muslims? Yeah, they did. Okay. But, we don't want to get into the back and forth of, indigenous Africans, black on black, we don't need to get into that. So the facts to the facts. You do have people, like from Madagascar who were brought all over the place, mostly from West Africa. Over here, we're mostly from West Africa. So I'm not sure about, now do you mean Kemetic people being brought west and they were the first person to be taken?
Yeah, that's
like, I don't never see no evidence to that.
I haven't either. It's just stuff that I've heard. Yeah, and that's why I want to stress that it's what I've heard. And I don't like to give answers when I can't say, this book or whatever, so it's not something that I've looked up specifically or researched specifically. I've just heard that before.
Yeah, I've heard it as well.
I'm sorry?
No, I've heard that as well.
Yeah. So there are questions. Where are there classes to attend? So I'm going to get into that. We at the Shrine of Ma'at, we have three millennia of excellence, which gives you a history of Kemet. There's a Black history class, which gives you a history of the Black American contribution to American history, which is American history, but it's just so racist that there's this division in terms of one being real history and the other one being the minor history. But there is no America without enslaved Africans who built it. Matter of fact, there is no European wealth without the enslaved Africans in the transatlantic human trafficking slave trade. Okay, so to learn about Kemet and Black history, we have that at the Shrine, and you can go to www.centerformaat.org or .com. I should know. It's probably .com because I didn't see it pop up. It's one or the other. So click on both, and the one that works is the right one. Sorry, centerformaat.com. So that's where you can get some, history lessons from there. Also, the Shrine of Ma'at, when Jabari is going to give a lecture or rather classes, he'll advertise it. So if you follow the Shrine of Ma'at and like it and get notifications, then you'll know when he is going to be giving lessons. For the language lessons, our high priestess, Anika, she gives language lessons. She gives intro language lessons, at which I've taken. If you want to go farther than the first level, Sanjeti is your man. He also gives intro lessons and at different levels. But since Sanjeti is right here, he can explain it better than me. So Sanjeti, let the people know how they can reach you for the Medunetra classes.
Okay, I was trying to see if I could type into the chat. Okay, so if you're interested in taking Medunetra, we're actually starting next week, the next session. It is every Thursday, beginning at 8:30 p.m. And it is at least 12 weeks, basically depending on, how the class goes. We may need more time or et cetera. But again,
give me the email. Give me the website so I can put it up while you can just tell me.
So Sanjeti Ankra, SONJEDIANKHRA @gmail.com. Here, I can actually type it in the private chat at least.
Okay. I got it, Sanjeti.
So if you're interested, then email me directly so that I can, because we got a little less than a week left. I like to give people an initial study sheet so you can get the ball rolling. So by the time first class gets here, you have got some practice in. So, and it's through the Institute of Kemetic Philology. The total cost is $400, $75 down for your deposit, and we do, an easy payment arrangements. So we've always done pretty well with that. So, email me directly, express your interest. Here, let me give you this here. Cash App. Okay, yeah. Email.
Let me tell you something, guys. Taking the Medu Necher is life-changing, period. Because you get to see how your ancestors communicated. And it answers a lot of questions of how it is that how we as Pan-African Black people use words, use expressions. It gives you a basis to see how hip hop was founded by Black men and Black women. And even when we never, you can meet a Black person and never meet them and say something that they've probably never heard, but because of context and people really rooted in Black energy, y'all both know what y'all saying to each other. That was kind of the experience I got when I took the class. So you need it for the soul, because if you understand what I'm saying, we're speaking an oppressor language. We're reading an oppressor language. We're writing an oppressor's language. This is not our native language. This is the first language we know, but this is not our native language. Learning your native language does something to your soul. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. I see a lot of people asking me a lot of questions. There were some books that you were going to mention. What were the books again? I want to answer the questions because folks get mad at me sometimes when I miss questions. I be trying to get them, y'all. Okay. What was the book you were holding up?
Okay. So this one here.
Yeah. What's the name of it?
Okay. So this is the Killigan People's Egypt Origin Legend Revisited. Was Isis Assis?
Can you spell Killigan so I won't mess that up?
KALENJIIN. The Killigan People's Egypt Origin Legend Revisited.
Egypt. It's always hard for me to spell Egypt. Egypt Origin.
Because you don't spell the word out no more. You just do Kemet.
Who is the author?
Okay, the author is Kipswich Sambu. All right, so I'm gonna type it in the private chat.
Can you spell it? K-I. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got it. I'm gonna put it in the private chat.
That's not what I asked you to do, but that's fine.
All right, K-I.
Hold on. Okay. K-I.
P.
K-I-P.
K. O-E-E-C-H.
O-C-H. O-E-C-H.
K-O-E-E. Two E's. C-H. And then Sambu. S-A-M-B-U.
All right. You get that? All right. We're going to put.
Yeah. Get both of his books.
All right.
And in this work here, The Mystery Legend Explained, this is the linguistic book. This is where he's explaining the relationship between Kemetic and Killigan. So he has word lists in here. Yeah.
So
when you're counting, yeah.
I just put up Sanjetti's Cash App and PayPal information, and there's not a space between it. I'm gonna type this again. So there's another space. So we don't do this for money, but we need money to do it. Okay, guys, we want to support our scholars who are bringing forth this information and who are at the forefront and taking the baton from legends like Dr. Raketi Amen. So we got to support him. His Cash App is Sonjedi, S-O-N-J-E-D-I, like son of Jedi, like from Star Wars. Who here remembers that? J-E-D-I, the Jedi? Mm-hmm. We are the Jedi Knights, Jedi. Sonjedi. And I'm just saying that so you can remember his Cash App. Okay. And then the PayPal is SN as in Nancy, JDI dot ifatunde8@gmail.com. I have it pinned. Yes, legends. Let's just remember that living in Connecticut and coming to New York and meeting Anika and Jabari and seeing and hearing all the people who they knew. And I have another, Anika and Jabari went to Cornell and they knew Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark. And I was talking with Kapresh. He's a friend of mine. He's from the Temple of Anu. And he just casually mentions, one of the legends that he met and knew before he passed away. And, Sanjeti has a copy of Let the Ancestors Speak by Akmi Ra. Ain't none of that fair because we didn't have that in Connecticut. But let me tell y'all this. You have him with StreamYard. See, there's his little book. See, he's trying to rub it in because he got the book.
Yeah, the book is falling apart. And those who may not know, this is my first Medu Neter instructor. This ancestor right there, he passed away in 2007. This is my first instructor. I met him when I was 19. That's my bragging rights. So this is actually my second copy. The first one got demoed, and this one's demoed. And it's out of print, so I ain't giving this up.
So I don't get jealous, but I be straight jelly when, people, let me get my second copy of Akmi Ra from the teacher who taught it to me. So anyway, but all jokes aside, I love it. I love that I'm in the space of people who actually knew these people, spoke to these people, learned from them, were raised spiritually, from them. And we have them here in New York. They're in New York. They're in the area. And because of being able to go live, we're able to share this information from these people, or you get them from the person who knew them, like a second generation level of information, okay? Or second generation access of the original information. Does that make sense, you guys? So, doing Tuesday Talk, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. And I've said this before. One of the reasons I started Tuesday Talk was because I wanted to talk to them too. I wanted to talk to all these great people. And Sanjeti is an accessible person, and we have to support our people. So make sure you hit up his Cash App and his PayPal. If you lose any of this information, like the name of the book, his email, the payment plan, his Cash App, his whatever, you can DM me at Yoga Girl Sai on Facebook, or you can DM the Shrine of Ma'at. I'll get the email and I'll get the information right to you. I'll just text Sanjeti. He'll give it to me. I'll give it to you. Okay. So we gave y'all a lot of information. This is looking at the original text, understanding how to purify and how to cleanse, and making sure that your home is clean, your altar space is clean. It's clean and purified, physically clean and purified, bringing in the spiritual energy in the space, making sure that your body, your temple is clean. It's clean on the outside, it's clean on the inside. Okay. And we can also take a step to the side and look to see how the culture of cleanliness that is ever present in Pan-African Black people around the world comes from this. That's why we be calling out other folk when they nasty. When you don't wash your body every day, you don't wash your privates every day, and you just be hitting the spots that stink. What? Anyway, when you're coming on a Tuesday Talk, one thing that you can do is look at what was ancient and how we're already still doing that in the present. And then the guest that we bring on makes that connection. And that's exactly what we had here. All right. So you have tangible information. Keep things clean, cleanse. Spiritually, we had the lessons with the Medu Neter that shows the essence and the origin of everything. We already know no pork on your fork, Now we know it comes before the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam is like a conduit from one space all the way through to here, and bringing a lot of that Kemetic knowledge to the people. So I hope you guys really enjoyed tonight and what Sanjeti has given to us. There will be a part 2, hopefully soon. We'll schedule that when we get off live. All right. I also want to say, for those of you who are interested in initiation, the Shrine of Ma'at is having initiation. Applications are being accepted and reviewed. Interviews, it's all happening. It's coming to a close by the end of February. So if you are interested in initiation, Shrine of Ma'at.org. Again, any questions you have about anything from tonight as it pertains to books and contact information, just let me know. And Sanjeti's information is still up there. I want to say thank you to all of you who participate on Tuesdays and also on Saturdays at 7 o'clock for staying on and being a part of what makes Tuesday Talk great. When you log on, share, bring your friends, tell them what you've learned. We got to wake up as many people as possible, but we have to be gentle. Just let them know, like, this is what our ancient African ancestors did. You know what I'm saying? Because we all need to be able to learn how great we were, because then it has you look at yourself to say, am I doing great things? And then, am I being who I really truly am? So thank you for joining. Sanjeti, thank you for joining. I love lessons in the Medu Neter, and we're gonna have him back shortly. Okay.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed hanging out, with you and everyone that's in the chat. They ask some pretty good questions. Keep me on my toes, keep me sharp. I like it. Keep it coming. And let's all just keep working. And remember, giving that Medu Neter class Thursdays, 8:30 p.m. We're going for 12 weeks, minimum 12 weeks. We have a lot of fun. We're going deep. You will be really good with that Medu Neter by the time we're done. Come on in. Let's work together. Let's do this as a team. Let's support each other.
I'm gonna type this in the chat. Medu Neter class Thursdays, and I'm gonna put your email, and it's what is it again? Sanjeti at Gmail. Sanjeti Akraf. Sanjeti Sanjeti Ankra at Gmail. And when this goes into when it's reshown or rebroadcasted and just hanging out on our website, your information is there. And I'm gonna leave it tagged up here. And so
so when it shows, it'll be this Thursday, if you will, by the time people see it.
No, it'll be Tuesday. Oh yeah, right.
Well, Tuesday, It'll be the first time that they see it. So this Thursday is the first class. Right.
In 2 days. When you see it on Tuesday, it's Thursday. It's gonna be the day you watch it, and it's gonna be the next day. It's gonna be the next day. It's gonna be Thursday. Okay. All right.
As soon as you put your 75 deposit down, then you get your study material, so that way you can get going. And yeah.
And there you go. All right, guys. Thank you for joining. This will be rebroadcasted on Tuesday. Watch it again. Take notes. Bring your friends. Do something along the lines of helping to wake people up. Okay. You have the Temple of Anu in Newark. You've got the Shrine of Ma'at. You've got, we're having initiation at the shrine. There's so many things that we do. There's the equinoxes and the solstices at the Tekken, outside events now because of COVID, but reach out to somebody to join the community in a more formal way, in a more ceremonial way, and be the shining that changes people so that they can see the way that they should be living as African people. Okay. So with that, I'm going to say Hotep, peace, and Shema Matep, which is go forth in peace. Thank you for joining.
Shema Matep.